Okay, let's go. Yep, everybody on board. Just it's still remarkable. It's still remarkable. There's Danielle. Still remarkable. Okay. Folks, we are live in 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Again, the weather's terrific. The air seems cleaner. Food tastes better. Water crisper. It's just a new day. Just a brand new day. And a lot of new days on the horizon. Yep. Yes, indeed. I always like that with you heard a lot of that in the aftermath of 2020. Boy, Biden, he's never seemed happier. He is so glad she lost. Let the panic begin. My goodness. They're losing it, folks. Absolutely losing it. Yep. No doubt about it. I would think we're going to be live later. Yes. I would bet that. All right, we're live in 1 minute. Un momento. So funny. Folks, Kate DePietro having a blast. And we are live. And, we're waiting for our cue. There it is at 106. Folks, good afternoon. 106 on this Thursday. It's still hard to absorb everything that happened, but I want to talk a little bit. This is the real news. We're on AM 1380, 99.9 FM. You can listen online at our website, dpetro.com. No eyes. See connection to the website right there below in the ticker. We're also live on Facebook. We're also, for the real news, we're also on YouTube and also on X. Now, this portion of the real news, and it's brought to you by the Coesit Inn. Stop it and see them. 226 Coesit Avenue, West Warwick. Lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge, plus the market at Coesit. It is a mainstay. Remember, the Coesit Inn is also perfect spot if you're having a large gathering. Maybe you're going to have birthday party gathering, family dinner, some kind of work function. It's also ideal for the collation lunch. Someone passes away, you have the funeral service. Now, where's everyone going to go? Well, the Coesit Inn. They can accommodate 50 people, 60 people. They can accommodate 100 people. They could accommodate 150 people. Not every restaurant can do that. The Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue in West Warwick. Well, folks, President Biden spoke just a short time ago. I'll play a little bit of that. And then the news, it is, I don't know, it's still hard to kind of absorb to exactly, exactly like what has transpired here. And I also want to mention it's difficult, and I'll admit it's becoming more challenging to find reliable news outlets. One of the reasons why, number one, one of the reasons why we go live so much. Number two, it is challenging for people to find out exactly where things stand. But as much as listen, obviously, you just heard I had Dan McGowan of the Boston Globe on, and admittedly, I don't have him on. He has great insight. He does. He's plugged in. He breaks a lot of news. I like having on people. I like having people who tell me something I don't know. It's not always easy to find people like that, but he does. Obviously, Donna Perry has such a unique perspective. I always learn something, and I like Justin Katz, and then of course our legal expert attorney Tim Dodd. But I want to touch on the local media, and this is more of a Rhode Island and Massachusetts, I believe, problem, and it's more of a Rhode Island problem. And that is, now again, I don't have Dan McGowan on to spar and debate with him. So I'd like to hear, he has very good sources. Like I said, breaks a lot of news. But one of the things that I do disagree, and I could have pushed back, but we're trying to cram in so much info. But I want to be clear that what we're about to see over the next 2 years, and when you have two states, really three with Connecticut, but let's just talk about Massachusetts, Rhode Island, side by side. And there's many people that go in and out of the different states each day. There are people that live in Rhode Island and work in Massachusetts, go back and forth each day. Conversely, same way. People that live in Mass, work in Rhode Island, a lot of the Hasbro people apparently, CBS. And so there's a lot of back and forth. But one thing that the two states have in common is, and I believe there should be more of an effort by the media to cover this and those running for office to cover this. And that is that we don't have representation in Washington. Government is set up. Rhode Island has always been best served when it had someone from both parties representing the state in Congress. Massachusetts the same way, when Scott Brown was Senator Scott Brown. So when he was then in the Senate, and that's why it was so important to try to get Cranston Mayor Alan Fung, who did win day of voting, but it was so important to try to get him down there because, folks, right now, with a Trump presidency, and also you have the Senate now, I mean, it's a big majority with the Republicans in the Senate. And it sure seems like Mike Johnson and the Republicans are going to hold on to the House. It is embarrassing, as I mentioned earlier, that California, it's like we have to wait weeks to get an answer on the election. Florida had it like that. Florida had it so much faster than Rhode Island. One of the things that Trump people are going to look into is, and it does make sense, it is ridiculous that every state has their own process for doing it. I mean, think about it. That doesn't make sense. And I think there's a pattern that every time a Republican gets in and straightens out the voting, it seems to fall Republican. I don't mean that in a sense of conspiracy. I mean it's just more efficient. There's less ways to cheat, and the process is streamlined more. So, I mean, and as I've said, but let me just stay on point here. What we're about to see, and where I disagree with Dan McGowan, look at the McKee administration right now, where whether it's problems with the bridge or various funding they have, are the Republicans happy that Seth Magaziner is in Congress? No, of course not. Are they happy that Gabe Amo holds that seat? No. CD1 more Democrat than CD2, which is Magaziner. But let's just focus on the Magaziner situation. So President Trump's going to control the White House. Right now, Governor McKee actually has access to the transportation secretary, Mayor Pete. He was walking on the bridge with the hard hat. And then Governor McKee even went to Washington to try to get more money. Now, again, they do that with labor and organize. It's really like, oh, if we get the money, the unions are going to get all this money. But let's just start off the box that relationship is over. It's safe to say Governor McKee, well, he won't have a weak relationship with the new administration. He has no relationship with the new administration. He certainly won't have any relationship with the new director of transportation, whoever that may be. So right now they live, I believe, and the state has lived in this false sense of security where you have Reid in White House, and Senator Reid is the most valuable, powerful asset that the state has. Period. To me, it's not even up for debate. But what Governor McKee also had was Tom Donilon, LaSalle grad, the Donilon family. I know the brother. They grew up in Providence. He's been with Biden for a very, very long time. So, the Donilon hears Rhode Island needs this, Rhode Island needs that. He certainly could maneuver and manipulate things regarding financial, money coming in order to help make the case, so to speak. You also had Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, who also certainly had the ear of the president. So you had some key people. Senator Reid in White House, Democrats in the majority with Schumer. You had Donilon at the White House. You had Raimondo, Commerce Secretary. Those are some people that are pretty, plugged in with the White House. And then you have, if you're Commerce Secretary Raimondo, having communication with the Transportation Secretary, he's reaching out to her for favors. I'm sure it goes both ways. That's why then he comes in, he's got the hard hat on and the whole deal. But folks, here's the part I break off from, respectfully disagree. I believe in the new administration. All bets are off. All bets are off. Don't you understand the whole purpose of why you're supposed to have the representatives in DC is they're supposed to represent the people. We don't have let's just stick with Rhode Island for a moment. I'll touch on Mass in a moment. Rhode Island, they're on the outside looking in. Now, if you're the Republican Party in DC and you want to flip, CD2 is a winnable seat. I don't know about CD1. I think Gabe Amo is beatable. I do. But when Sockett went with Trump, Lincoln did. Smithfield did. That western part, it's a little harder when you go to the East Bay. But let's just stick with CD2 for a moment. Seth Magaziner doesn't live in the district. If you're the speaker, you're the Republican-controlled House, why would you give money and grants to help Seth Magaziner get reelected? The answer is you wouldn't. I believe Patricia Morgan made a loud statement with her run against Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I believe, and I haven't even spoken to her, but I believe Representative Patricia Morgan right now is maybe, and it would be a year away, but she demonstrated to DC that she can get the vote. And Rhode Island demonstrated to the Republicans in Congress that the state potentially, I'm not ready to say could be in play, but it's inching closer. It is certainly inching closer. And then we're going to touch on the media for a moment. But I'm just saying this is one of the problems with who we have. So Reid and White House, they're on the outside looking in. Senator Whitehouse is really on the outside looking in. Senator Reid, because of his experience, because of his relationships, because of his knowledge on the Armed Services Committee, Rhode Island Senator Jack Reid is a respected individual in the Senate, and he's been there a long time. And the Senate is, somewhat of a club. The two most exclusive clubs are whoever the owners are of the NFL teams and the Senate, only 100 members. With the owners of the NFL teams, even a more exclusive club. But nonetheless, but White House is totally on the outside looking in. He is now useless to the state. And then look at Congress. Gabe Ammo's not on any big committees. White House isn't on any. Why would Mike Johnson and the Republicans want to do anything to make Seth Magaziner look good? It's the opposite. They would like that seat flipped. And between West Greenwich and Richmond and West Warwick, and there was a lot of movement. Trump did fairly well in Cranston. He certainly did well in Johnston. You could make an argument that with the right candidate and money, how about this? Let's just dream for a minute. I'm saying Patricia Morgan. I don't know. Maybe it would be someone else. But let's just stick with Patricia Morgan simply because she had a very respectable, did well against White House. How about President Trump coming to Rhode Island in 2 years to campaign for the Republican representative for Congress? I think that'd be a very powerful statement. That could move the needle. How about the Republicans? Kevin McCarthy came in, raised money. They pumped money into Alan Fung running. So that could be on their wish list. They could see that. I think they would view that as, now that could be a winnable seat. That's a seat we could flip. So, but now I want to touch on one of the problems we're going to face is we right now, we don't have representation of Washington. We don't. Harris won Rhode Island. Harris won Mass. You have Elizabeth Warren. You have Markey. The Senate, they're closed out. The House closed out. We are totally on the outside looking in. And I maintain, Governor, I'll say this about President Trump. It's not lost on him that Raimondo's from here. It's not lost on him. I haven't heard anyone else say this. You don't think he remembers David Cicilline, one of the impeachment managers? The attacks, the brazen lies, and Cicilline, who's lauded as this statesman in the state. I am telling you right now, all bets are off. And this is the problem when you have 4 Democrats from Rhode Island and Washington, and you have all Democrats in Mass. This is a moment, I think, that voters truly need to wake up and realize, wait a minute, like this isn't any way to do it. And you can't complain. You can't complain that you don't have proper representation. There were elections. And it was the choice of the Rhode Island voters not to send the proper people to D.C. But I am telling you, do you think for 2 seconds the Trump administration is going to give someone like Dan McKee the time of day? Yesterday, he put out a statement. It's a time for everyone to be on the same team. The same team. He won't even sit down with his own state police. Same team. McKee spent last Thursday attacking his Democrat Attorney General, Peter Neronha. Same team. Donlin out of the White House. Raimondo out of Commerce. Reed, White House, not in the minority, now not in the Senate majority. And Magaziner and Gabe Ammo, out. They're not in power. Republicans control the House. Folks, this is the ultimate. I mean, talk about day late, dollar short, nothing. But I want to come back to something in just a moment. But I want to stay on schedule, folks. I want to remind you, this portion of the program is brought to you by AJ Home Improvement. Call them today, 401-323-9252. Frame to finish basements, acoustical ceilings, new homes, additions, commercial rehabs, painting, remodeling. They do it all. AJ Home Improvement, 401-323-9252. Give them a chance to pitch your business. AJ Home Improvement, 401-323-9252. I share their Facebook page. They do incredible work with acoustical ceilings. They could do an addition on your home. Maybe you have an unfinished garage, maybe an unfinished basement. AJ Home Improvement, 401-323-9252. Now, the Rhode Island Senate. I don't know this Ryan Pearson. He's making a move to oust Dominic Ruggerio. I applaud that. Ruggerio, he is the laborers through and through. Folks, businesses don't want to do business in a state where they're going to get shaken down. I don't know how else to explain it. I've been saying it for a long time. They leave. You start a business, it's successful, and suddenly you have the AFL-CIO and the unions knocking on your door and saying, we're your new partners. We're going to control your workers. We're going to run your business. And people don't want to deal with that. So I don't know this Ryan Pearson. I like the fact he's making a move on Ruggerio. Ruggerio looks like death warmed over. I mean, Ruggerio looks like he's laid out at Nautilillos. The last time I saw someone that looked like Senate President Dominic Ruggerio, I was kneeling in front of them and saying a prayer and then greeting the family at the wake. So I give credit to the fact that they're trying to get him out of there. What I don't, and by the way, I certainly hope that the Republicans, and there's not many of them in the Senate, but they should be all in on trying to get rid of Ruggerio. Ruggerio is also the reason why there's Ruggerio is the reason why there's no changes with DOT. Let me be very clear. Rhode Island DOT, no one's been suspended, no one's been fired, no one's been demoted. Everything, if anything, they've gotten raises. It is inconceivable that we're coming up on 1 year and the bridge is a debacle, and no one has been held accountable with that. Nobody. But here's what I don't understand. So Ryan Pearson, he's going to make a move to oust Senate President Dominic Ruggerio. I don't know much. I don't know much about Ryan Pearson. But I get Ruggerio out of there. But what I don't understand is the leadership team he has behind him is Val Lawson, who's the number 2 to Ruggerio. Folks, she's the teachers union. Let me explain what's about to happen. President Trump is going to dismantle the Department of Education. Do you understand? First of all, she should not be there. Let me be very clear about something. In a normal state, the head of the state Senate would not be the laborers. He's there to only protect the laborers. You go to him and say, I want to do this or that. The only thing he wants to push are union jobs on the companies. So that become barnacles on them. The Rhode Island Department, not the Rhode Island, the Department of Education, the Trump administration, they're going to blow that up. And it needs to be blown up because they're completely controlled and manipulated by the teachers union. The Trump administration, they're in favor of school choice. They're in favor. The teachers union, the public school formula is a failed formula. It doesn't, it's a waste of money. In Providence, all the parents want to send their kids to the charter schools. And we've talked about that with Dan McGowan, who's very knowledgeable about it. Where they say, we're going to stay late this day. We're going to start earlier. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You can't do that. So the number 2 person in the state Senate, and this Ryan Pearson, he's even saying this woman, Val Lawson, first of all, she's in the East Bay. I don't know how she's even got reelected. You'd think all would be swept out. Her job up at the State House is not to serve her constituents. Her job is to protect the teachers unions. They're about to be blown up because the Department of Education, they put out all these mandates and they're run and controlled by the very powerful teachers unions. Look in Chicago, Look in New York. Massachusetts, certainly to a degree. You certainly saw it at Rhode Island, where with COVID, it all became about money. And look at, I'll just say this. In Providence, it's a big mystery. It's really not, but it seems like a mystery. Gee, why can't the schools perform? Why can't the test scores improve? Why can't, or blah, blah, blah. It's not complicated. The problem is the teachers union. You don't need all those schools in Providence. You don't need all that staff. Close some of the schools, consolidate. You don't need all that staff. Get rid of the dead wood. Why can't you do these things? Because the teachers unions control the politicians. The Trump administration, boom, is going to blow that up. Just like, remember like Roadrunner, when the coyote or whatever, they'd have it made dynamite seem easy. It was a little box at the handle, and it was then like a cord. I mean, they're going to torch it. There are other states. Here's what you need. There are other states have much better education system, much better use. There are people that travel to places like Texas and Florida and the Carolinas, brand new, beautiful schools, much less expensive, better performing schools. You know, you saw it at Rhode Island. The first thing they started to do was, we're going to get rid of, I remember growing up, Parkview, which was, I didn't go there, but 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, they had sports teams. Parkview had basketball team, had a baseball team, had track, had swimming. First thing to get cut from Cranston. Nope, no money. There's plenty of money. It's where the money goes. Then all the public schools. Well, we got to eliminate 9th grade sports. Freshman sports used to be a big thing. Why'd they have to go? No money. There's plenty of money. It's not a matter of money. It's what they do with the money. But I am telling you right now that and here's where I'm going to get to the media thing. I'm going to get to the media thing, the media part of this in just a moment. Folks, this portion of our program, and people ask me about it, and it's fantastic. Kids Club on the Pike. Kids Club on the Pike. Before and after school programs, perfect for a birthday party venue. Kids Club on the Pike. It's new. It's designed to entertain children, and it's right on the Johnston-Cranston line. So if you're having a birthday party for children or grandchildren, or maybe a team, excuse me, it's going to have an end of year banquet celebration. Kids Club on the Pike is perfect. They have a little movie theater room. They have a dance room. They have all things that are perfect like that. Kids Club on the Pike, right on the Cranston-Johnson line. Perfect for a birthday party or any type of youth celebration. Kids Club on the Pike. Forget about Dave & Buster's. It's not safe to bring children into Providence Place Mall. Forget about Chuck E. Sleaze. All the kids end up sick when they leave there. Kids Club on the Pike. Folks, now we're going to talk about the local media. And, the local media, did they really give Patricia Morgan the coverage that she deserved? No. Look how well President Trump did with no coverage. Local media, did they do any segments on the amount of Trump supporters in our state? No. One of the most glaring examples, like there's always a situation that, to me, that highlights when something's really broken, right? Like really broken. When Kamala Harris went on The View, friendly territory, and was asked a pretty simple question, which is, would you have done anything differently under Biden? And she couldn't come up with an answer. Nothing comes to mind, whatever that's supposed to mean. They were never able to get past that. She didn't talk about successes. She didn't say, for instance, we had good gains here, and what I would do differently is I think we'd push it more like that, or whatever it may be. But so to me, she was never able to get past that. And they were also never able to shake Biden. But let me just say this. I think we can all agree. Listen, Governor McKee is completely in the pocket. He is owned by the unions. They put him in office. They control him. With everything going on, is there anyone right now that really believes that what was missing from the state is the most expensive minor league soccer stadium in the country? I don't know anyone that thinks that. And that was a priority because McKee made that promise. I see a number of these different municipalities, they voted, build a new school and new life. That's all. That's not economic development. That's just to feed the bottomless pit of labor. But getting back to McKee, is there anyone right now with the problem at the border, with the cost of inflation and rent and groceries, is there anyone thinks that we should be giving money to the developer who bought the Superman building? I don't know any legitimate, logical person that thinks that. And that was another McKee priority. Folks, look at the situation down the dial. Does it make sense to anyone that Governor McKee, that station that I was on for 10 years and had tremendous success, was the fill-in on the Savage Nation? I remember they gave me a hard time when I hosted the Trump rally, which was covered, on carried live on CNN and Fox. But there's always periods where it's broken. And to me, the fact that they still allow a McKee campaign surrogate 3 hours a day, it just shows you how broken it is. And I can tell you that does not go on in other places. That's an only in Rhode Island. People love that expression, only in Rhode Island. Only in Rhode Island would you have a talentless hack who's also a state employee, works at the Ryan Center. So technically works for McKee. And I don't have an understanding why the Republican Party puts up with it, why they tolerate it. It's an in-kind gift contribution given 3 hours a day, weekdays, of running cover for the governor. Has a segment, Protect the Governor, supposed to be, freewheeling, ask anything. Why was the governor not asked about who his attorney was on this whole thing? How come he wasn't asked about that? Is that supposed to be an accident, overlooked? Or did the McKee people say, don't ask him that Bill Murphy, the lobbyist attorney, was his guy? You just wonder, when is the monopoly going to break through? When is the lock going to break? When are people going to say, we don't have media that's representing how the people think, how people feel? As Channel 10, they have a story that in Kent County, it was 1 point Harris beat Trump. But you have to wonder, do the people in our local media, do they want to change it? Do they want to keep the status quo? Why would you leave someone who admittedly worked on the McKee campaign, acts as a running interference surrogate, bashing Trump at every turn? Why would that person be allowed, even though it's once a week at midnight, to have a television show on Fox Providence? Why would that person be allowed behind the microphone 3 hours a day? Why is that person, by the way, controls the 3 hours before him? It's one of those things that, of course, it doesn't make sense. Nationally, who right now, and I think Scott Jennings said this brilliantly, we were told that white women were voting for Harris. He was saying this. We told people that Puerto Rico was going to decide the election. We were told that Black Hispanics were all rallying behind Harris. None of it was true. The media ran with that Iowa story. And I admit, I have been a big defender of a lot of the polls. Of course, people are not going to trust that right now. Why would they trust that? I also, like Scott Jennings said, who in their right mind was pushing the theory that Liz Cheney was going to make a difference in this election? She had no effect. Like they're delusional. What you saw was people stepping forward. And folks, again, locally, there's no coverage for a sanctuary state. Nothing. No one talks about it. It doesn't mean it goes away. McKee Matos, well, it's not a license. It's a driving privilege. I'm telling you, the Trump administration is going to ban that. And it should be banned. And no one talks about it. Nobody. Governor McKee ignoring ICE and letting illegal criminals free. And it takes the ICE office in Boston to put out that story. It is, you're not given an accurate depiction of what's really happening. But what I can't believe is the people in the East Bay that have been just, their lives turned upside down, their quality of life destroyed. People have to leave jobs. And they allow themselves to be lied to each day in traffic reports, that the people presenting it in that station, WMKRO, they know they're giving false information with the traffic reports, but they do it to cover for McKee. When do people say, I'm not taking this anymore? Patricia Morgan deserved a bigger platform in her run against Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. She did. She deserved to have more debates. She deserved that race deserved more attention. But the status quo didn't want more attention. The status quo it's preposterous to defend Governor McKee against Attorney General Peter Neronha, who, again, I thought he was right on the money. He did interfere. He did lie, McKee. He did lie to the media. He did interfere with that. Like, when does it end? I am telling you right now, we are absolutely on the outside looking in. And as long as the media, finally yesterday, I think it is good that Channel 6, Channel 10, they finally went down. And you saw those Trump supporters out on the sidewalk and outside on Post Road. There they are, never acknowledged at the State House. The media has talked about McKee won't meet with the Republicans. I think the Republicans at the Rhode Island State House, the elected Republicans at the State House, I think it's time to galvanize more. I think it's time to go after the status quo that's up there, that call out the corruption, that allow all this foolishness, to point out the amount of money spent with all the illegals. And our voting system is flawed. It's absolutely flawed. But who's going to complain? Governor McKee's going to complain. We don't have anyone in Washington that is representing Rhode Island. And Mass is in the same boat. Massachusetts with Governor Healy, with Seth Moulton, with Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas giving all her fake speeches. I think people will look back and say it was so bad in Massachusetts, you'd see them land at Logan, and then they would kick Americans out of shelters to make way for all the illegals coming in. It is ludicrous what we have been living through. But I still don't think the media captures it. And I don't think the mood is captured at the State House. I think the Republicans at the State House, whether it's in the state Senate with Minority Leader Jessica De La Cruz, whether it's the GOP chairman Joe Powers, whose term is up in March, so I don't know if he's leaving or someone new is coming in or what's going to happen, but Mike Chippendale and the other Republicans, I think it's time to start to push back. I think it's time to galvanize how people are just disgusted. And it really showed itself with Governor McKee calling a press conference and thinking that the people of the state were going to celebrate that he was not charged with bribery with that contract, where he is so tone deaf, is I don't know anyone that was celebrating that. I heard people despondent and in despair and disappointed he wasn't charged with bribery because he totally interfered. And there's different ways. I mean, all those people donating money to him and things like that, there's different way. He totally interfered. It was a rigged bid. I don't know. If that was a Republican attorney general, would they have charged him? Folks, also keep in mind, the president gets to appoint, the White House does, who the U.S. attorney would be, both in Massachusetts, Josh Levy's going to be on his way out, and also in Rhode Island. We're going to have a new U.S. attorney. It doesn't happen right away. Takes a little while. But I believe they're going to start to go into some of these bridge contracts. And they're going to start to lean in. And it should be. You know, what was going on when Gina was the governor? What happened to the money? There was $4 billion there. And the bridge is a disaster. And no one is being held accountable. And you certainly don't get any answers out of Governor McGreed. Folks, this portion of the program is brought to you by Watson Materials, largest selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island. South County Trail, call them 401-885-0600. Watson Materials. The most complete selection of landscape material in Rhode Island is Watson Materials. Call them 401-885-0600. Landscape lighting, pavers, retaining walls, natural stone, cobblestone, decorative stone. Watson Materials with all their outdoor features. 401-885-0600. It came down to, and it's embarrassing. I'll say it. It's to me, Magaziner, Gabe Amo, Congressman, McKee and Matos. They're embarrassing. They're embarrassing. Matos, all the rhetoric. They blame everything on the MAGA Republicans and the white supremacists and blah, blah, blah. And no, you know, the irony that Harris lost because men of color, God bless me, did not, goodness, cheap blow from Kennedy Plaza, did not want to vote. Latino men, exit polls. What did the Latino men especially say about Harris? There was no way I was voting for a woman of color. Democrat. Are you a Democrat? Yes. Did you vote for Biden? Yes. Did you vote for Harris? No. Why not? Latino male. There's no way I was voting for a woman of color. So that's not the MAGA Republicans. That's not the white supremacists that they preach about. No talk about that. Right now, we don't have anyone that represents our views. And the same goes for Massachusetts. You know, I don't know who's going to challenge Governor Healy for governor. You know, right now there is talk that former Governor Charlie Baker, who, again, I get, he's not the MAGA Republican people like, but something has to change where we have to have representation. We don't, and I tell them, we don't have representation. McKee and Matos, they're an embarrassment. McKee is so far in over his head, and Gabe Amo and Seth Magaziner, they're on the outside looking in. You deserve representation. We deserve representation. But conversely, we don't have anyone, even in the media. You know, when you see even some of the political discussions on, you know, I'll just give an example. And I used to work with her. Okay. I used to work with her. And I think I enjoyed a cordial relationship with Arlene Violet. But Lively Experiment, their idea of having a Republican on and a Republican voice on is Arlene Violet. Arlene Violet, she despises President Trump. Arlene started losing her show when she turned on President Bush. Arlene hated President Bush. And it was because of Iraq, and she was always praising Chafee. And it cost her male audience. I had left. I'd gone to Boston. But, what is it? Arlene, Lively Experiment. I want to stick with that for a moment. And I know Hummel, and I don't dislike Hummel. And a lot of it's the people that run Channel 36. But their idea of having a Republican voice on is they'll have on Arlene or Ken Block, and they're both never Trumpers. Or then Hummel will have on Joe Trillo. Joe Trillo left the Republican Party. Joe Trillo, ran against the Republican, Alan Fung, that stood a decent chance of taking out Raimondo in 2018. My point is, you don't even hear a Republican voice. You don't hear a Trump voice, even with our local media. They didn't do any local segments on that. Now, the closest thing right now is Mayor Hopkins. Cranston has a Republican mayor. And the mayor of Warwick, who absolutely blew out his competition, Mayor Picozzi, he's an independent. Well, he's probably the closest thing to a Republican. I think right now, over the next 2 years, there's a real opportunity to start to turn things around. There is, but part of that has to come with the media and proper coverage and people demanding more. I feel Patricia Morgan gave it all she had, but she had one debate against Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. I don't think she, and we'd have her on, and they weren't even running her press releases. But I think it's time for the Republicans in the state, and especially at the State House. At this point, if you're a never Trumper, and they're out there, I like Ken Block. I respect Ken Block. He's always hated Trump. He wrote a book and, made the rounds that I showed there was nothing wrong, even though the voting doesn't make sense with how much voting there was in 2016 for Democrats, how much there was in 2020, and then how much there was this time. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So there is something odd and wrong about that. But the election on Tuesday, there has to be change in Rhode Island and Mass. It can't continue down this path. People are tired of being lectured to. People are tired of, look at Ryan Pearson. Ryan Pearson, who he wants to take out Ruggiero, and his number twos are Dawn Hoyer, white female woke from Newport, progressive, and Val Lawson, white female teachers union person from the East Bay. Those two women are exactly why Harris lost. Ryan Pearson, now again, anything to take out Ruggiero. But those two women, they epitomize why people voted for Trump. Because no one wants to. Bill Burr has a big thing. He has a whole comedy routine about white women. And the media was trying to tell you that white women were all in the suburbs. They're all breaking for Harris. It's all a lie. It's all false. So whether it's Rhode Island or Mass, something needs to be done about the woke. They lecture. They, how out of tune and tone deaf. Don't you understand? Joe Scarborough was saying the Democrat Party is the party is broken. What they think is a priority. Think of that. Democracy's on the ballot. People are paying triple for groceries. People are seeing people come into these different communities from other countries and they have to pay for them. Democracy's on the ballot. We don't have a democracy. If we had democracy, McKee wouldn't be in office, Seth Magaziner wouldn't be in office, and Matos wouldn't be in office. So democracy's on the ballot. My point is, the Dawn Hoyers, and the State House is filled with them, right? Tansey, Val Lawson, that lady, she's only there to protect the unions. McKee was seen election night cozying up to Crowley. Don't you understand? These people are beyond the outside looking in. They're in for a rude awakening. They're the past. These people they've led to the demise of our area. It's over. The White House is going to put the screws to it. You know, I remember in 2016 that Mayor Elorza was going on CNN saying, no, we're not going to allow any of this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling you, the deportations are coming. And McKee's going to stand there and say, Rhode Island will not allow any of these people. You know, they're going to have driver's licenses. They're going to be in our schools. The people of our state won't allow them to be deported. Wrong. We're going to be cheering it on. This is insanity. Folks, if you took, as I've talked about it, and no one will cover it, if you took the illegals out, Providence schools, Pawtucket schools, Central Falls, there's millions. First of all, those schools, you don't need all those schools, because the people that live in those cities that have children, they either want to send their children to charter schools or they send them to private schools. You don't need all those schools. You don't need all those teachers. You don't need all those union members. That's what it's about. And that's going to change. Raimondo said, think of this, Raimondo back in August, Gina was making the round saying, I think there's room. I think America's ready for 2 women on the ticket. She's in the wrong party. Maybe the Republicans would be. I mean, if you didn't have Trump, I could actually see the Republicans electing Nikki Haley and Elise Stefanik or some variation of that, right? But Gina Raimondo is saying that and doesn't even realize in her own party, in the Democrat Party, Latino men would not vote for a woman at the top of the ticket. And Raimondo, who's so tone deaf, thinks that her party is ready for 2 women on the ticket. Her party didn't want 1 woman on the ticket. It does make you wonder about 2020. It does. And the vote total of what came out. It does make you, I think it is a fair question. Folks, this portion of our program is brought to you by Dreammaker. Next weekend is the home show at the Rhode Island Convention Center. Stop in. They're going to have a booth there. Dennis and Christina, if you're thinking of a new kitchen or bath, Dreammaker. And they have a beautiful design center right on Greenwich Avenue in Warwick, right near Crown Plaza, right near Kachai. Dreammaker, one-stop shop, take you from concept to completion, respect, integrity, customer focus. It's Dreammaker. If you're thinking of a new kitchen or bath, call them, Dreammaker. Make an appointment, 401-433-7272, and stop in and see them. Their beautiful design center, Greenwich Avenue, Warwick. They're right near Crown Plaza. Folks, at 156, it has to change collectively also how there is the way you're treated, the way we're treated. It has to change in both. I'm just going to say Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Right now, if you're the Trump White House, they almost flipped New Jersey. They almost flipped New York. I mean, people are fed up and tired of it, but they're looking at Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts. You don't want to be made an example of. Governor McKee is the perfect person that I think and I hate to say this, I think Rhode Island could become the textbook who you want to make an example of. All the McKee policies are the opposite of the Trump administration. The Trump administration is not going to be controlled by the teachers' unions. McKee is a puppet to them. The Trump administration is not going to support sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. McKee is the godfather of it. He gave them driver's licenses. The Trump administration wants to redo the Department of Education and break the grip on all these public school education and allow people school choice. McKee is controlled by the teachers union. It is the polar opposite. And let alone, I mean, I don't think it would ever get on his radar. But if his new head of Department of Transportation ever briefed him, keep in mind, right, his occupation was a builder. If they ever briefed him on the Washington Bridge saga, $4 billion, and it's falling down and closed, and they don't even have a design, and they don't have a builder, and no one was ever fired, and no one was suspended, and no one was demoted. Not one person has been held accountable, and no one charged. And I think there could be charges there. And I would hope a new U.S. attorney would come in, and that could and dig in to the McKee administration, the Raimondo administration, and the corruption that went in to the Washington Bridge. Who was lining their pockets? Where did all the money go? Where did the double billing go? What type of materials were they using? Why were the bridges not inspected? $4 billion gone. I think, again, with everything that they have to worry about, I don't know if it would ever get on his radar because there's so many things, specifically the border and getting more Republicans elected in the House. Folks, things have to change. All right, on this Thursday, November 7th, yes, we're going to do Facebook Live later. We're going to do Road Patrol. For those listening on the radio, stay tuned. You're going to hear the 2 o'clock news. We will be back on the radio tomorrow at 11. I want to thank JR. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, if you're listening on the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Everyone else will be doing Road Patrol Live later. Enjoy this beautiful Thursday.